Are you ready for the wedding, but not the marriage?
Being single sucks.
Because a person doesn't make you happy.
Preparing for the promise that I don't see.
No good thing will he withhold from them who walk uprightly.
Good evening. I'm Lorraine, co-founder of A Single Mission. Welcome to those who have usually here and those who are new and those who might be watching well into the future. Thank you for joining me live on Live, Love, and Marry Wiser. Today, we're talking about 7 signs that you are not ready for marriage. And these are important. They are not exhaustive, obviously, but 7 important signs. And we're going to try to talk about what you can do to fix those things or become ready as well. We're going to check in now. There's already the check-in is in the chat. Write in the chat something that you think is a sign that a person is not ready for marriage. I don't want you to stay in the background. I want you to join the chat, join the put it in the comment. I want to hear from you. What is a sign in your mind that you think a person is not ready for marriage? I'm going to share 7 with you today, and I want to hear what your thoughts are. Thank you again for joining. And as you think about those and start writing that in the chat, we're going to remind you that we are aiming for 10,000, impacting 10,000 women this year. And we are looking for you to like, share, subscribe, comment, tell other people about this program if it has been a blessing to you, and get them to join. Get them to join live. That would be awesome. So we can have more people commenting in the chat, asking questions, talking back and forth. But also, if they can't watch it live, then you can obviously watch it on our YouTube channel at any time that you want. So we thank you for that. And we're going to go ahead and get started. Of course, we don't have our co-hosts with us today, but we will have them back in the next couple of weeks. As you know, we only have 2 episodes left after this for this season. Then we'll do some recorded videos for you, and then we'll let you know when we'll be resuming our lives. And I will try to let you know that by the last program here, which is August 15th. All right. So the first sign that you are not ready for marriage, even though you're excited about the wedding, a lot of people are excited about their wedding, but they're not really ready for marriage, is you are not honest about nor addressing your character flaws. So this is a big one. First of all, let's talk about being honest about them. We all have them. They're in all of us. There are things that we can be doing better. Some things that we're just doing poorly. Some are poor communicators. Some are not affectionate. Some are just unkind. Like, all of these things are things that are character flaws. And it's hard enough to just have a successful life and career with some of these things, but to have actual intimate relationships that are successful, just one husband or one wife that is successful, when you have these things, it brings many challenges into the relationship. So number one, it means that you are not accountable for your mistakes and for your actions. When you're in a relationship, when you're at a job, when you're anywhere in relationship with other people, and you don't know how to take responsibility for your actions and saying, hey, yeah, I messed up. That was my mistake or my bad. Not in a flippant way, but that, like, yeah, that is on me. I'm accountable for that. I messed that up. Yes, I said that and I shouldn't have. Yes, I did that and I shouldn't have. or I should have done this and I didn't do it, then if you are not able to do that, if you're not able to take feedback from other people when they say, hey, I didn't like when you did that, or you shouldn't have done that, then that is a problem that you need to work on. And it is going to be very detrimental to a marriage. It is huge in marriage. I mean, you're talking about, this isn't someone you're dating for a couple of months where no conflict might ever come up, or no mistakes or sins against that person might have. We're talking about prayerfully, 10, 20, 30, 50 years of marriage. And if you're always putting the blame on something else or someone else or this situation or that situation, versus recognizing that this is a problem that I have, this is a problem I need to correct, and this is how it's impacting you, then you're not going to have a very effective and happy relationship. But then on top of that, if you know the things that are wrong with you and then you're not addressing them, you are just ignoring it, you're not reading a book or getting coaching or going to therapy or praying or, whatever it is, disciplining yourself in order to deal with that thing and overcome it, then that is a problem. And it kind of tells the story about what your relationship is going to look like with another person, because there are going to be marital issues. Whether you're the perfect absolute match for each other, you're still not each other. So there is going to be some level of conflict or differences. And if you're not the kind of person who's just like, hey, I want to grow, I want to learn, let's grow together, let's do something to improve this, as opposed to just putting it aside or saying, oh, it's not a big deal, or you're making, a huge mountain out of a molehill, then that's going to cause more conflict in the relationship. And so being able to be honest about your character flaws and then taking steps to address them. I know one of my issues is that I get angry really quick, not necessarily at people. I don't go off on people or anything like that, but I do get angry quick when situations come up. I can. And I don't like that. So I've been trying to literally discipline myself and work on that. And being able to take that breath, take some time to think, how can I resolve this, or not just flare up because something happens. And so you have to be diligent. You have to be disciplined. You have to have a plan. Sanctification is not just the Holy Spirit just coming and snatching these bad traits out of you. It's you surrendering them day by day by day as they come up. So that's number one. You're not honest about, or nor are you addressing your character flaws. And within that answer, I told you some of the things that you can do. Go to therapy, get a coach, come up with a plan, write down a plan. I know what triggers me. So if I know what triggers me, when I know I'm going to face that thing, then what am I going to do, as opposed to getting angry or mouthing off or whatever your thing is. I know what my triggers are. When I make a mistake, why do I refuse to accept responsibility for that without making excuses? Where is that coming from? Because that comes from a place too. It could be you're a perfectionist and just making a mistake freaks you out and makes you think you're less than. So there's a whole host of things. So actually seeing a therapist or a coach or reading a book about the topic. If you can't afford to do those things, there's podcasts that are free. There's YouTube programs like this that talk about those specific issues. And there's a whole host of resources in order for you to learn how to do some things better and differently. Number two is you are unhappy because you are single. And you might be thinking, well, isn't everyone unhappy if they're single and they want to be married? Well, a lot of people are, but that doesn't mean it's okay. Here's my thing. If you are unhappy as a single person, you will be really unhappy as a married person, because as a single person, you at least have the freedom to do whatever it is that you want to do. You are in control of your money, you're in control of your home, you're in control of everything, whether you go, you stay, you do, you don't do. But when you're married and you're unhappy, now you still have to be accountable to another person. Marriage doesn't make you happy. Remember when we talked about in episode 3 from season 1, and I will link that up here, that that we were talking about the episode, it was the episode where we talked about, are single women happier than other people, like married women or married men or single men? And they found that people are married women are as happy as they were when they were single. So there's like a little bump when you get married because you're excited and you think it's going to be this great thing, which marriage is a great thing. So we're not saying that. But if you were unhappy before, after that little bump, reality hits and then you're still unhappy. So if you are unhappy now as a single person, you're not ready to be married, because that person is just going to increase your unhappiness over time. So figure out the things that are a barrier to you being happy, because I absolutely believe 100% that we can create a life that we love as singles. In fact, that's the tagline, helping you create a life that you love for the company, because I believe it very strongly. And I see so many people get married because they're unhappy, thinking marriage is going to be the thing that changes that, when it's a lot of times the thing that makes it worse. In addition to that, you put the burden on the other person to make you happy. And no person has the ability to do that. So you go in, you're unhappy, and then you're constantly needing them to do this or do that, or say this or say that, or be this or be that, to make you happy. And they may do that for a while, and that happiness may last for a day or a week or even a month. But then over time, they're going to keep having to do all of these things. Now, obviously, what I'm not saying is that when you're married, of course, people are contributing to your happiness, or why would you marry them? At least they should be. But they aren't the source of your happiness. You know, as Christians, the source of our happiness or joy, I'm using those interchangeably, is Christ and our relationship with him. But creating a life that is holistic and complete also brings joy. And so I'm actually going to talk a little bit about that at the end. So in Philippians 4:11, the Bible says, be content in whatever state that you are. And when I looked up the word content, because sometimes we think of content like, oh, okay, I'm just okay. Excuse me. But the dictionary actually says that content means a state of peaceful happiness, which means that if that never changed for you, if you never did get married, that you would still be happy. So that's number 2. Number 3 is you don't truly love yourself. You are looking for someone else to love you, but you don't love yourself. And why would anyone else love you if you don't love yourself? You know yourself better. And you don't have to love every one of your traits. We just talked about that. You have character flaws, we all do, but you love yourself. And I think the foundation for loving yourself is right there in the Bible, in the commandments, where it says, love your neighbor as yourself. When you look at the commandments and it talks about, you know, honor your father and your mother, don't kill, don't steal, and all that. I think that when we really break those down, we can find that that applies to ourselves as well. Don't kill your own joy. Don't steal from yourself. Don't be integrous with yourself. And I do a whole presentation on that. If you want to book me to speak at your event or your church, you can go to booking at asinglemission.com, and there's a link where you can book me to speak. And I'll talk about in depth about that and some other things. But loving yourself is important. When you don't find value in yourself, why should someone else find value in you? When you lack confidence, you're saying to someone that there isn't value in me. So why then would they look at you and be like, oh, she's awesome. I'm going to rock with her. I'm going to get with her. I'm going to date her. I'm going to love her. It doesn't work that way. Now, we know that there are people who may not be confident, but they still get someone. But then the problem with that is they are constantly relying on that other person for validation of who they are and how good they are and how beautiful they are and how smart they are and how wonderful they are and all of these things, because they don't have that belief in themselves. They think that they don't have high self-worth. And so they are needing that to come from external versus internal. The next thing is number 4 is you are not financially stable. Are you not? Yeah, we're having some technical issues here. Sorry, you are not financially stable. So a lot of times people think that this just applies to men. And totally disagree with that. Of course, we know in our reality that most people are going to believe that the man should have a stable finances and be able to take care of his household and all of that. Totally agree with that. And I think that is legitimate. However, especially when you are in your 30s, 40s, 50s, and you're just getting married, you definitely should have some financial stability. I think that you should have savings. You should be out of debt or trying to get out of debt. Hold on. Where's this echo? You should be out of debt or trying to get out of debt. You should be having a budget. Now, everyone may not have the same kind of budget or whatever, but you should be someone who lives within their means. I'll just say it like that. Like, you may not write out a budget, but you live within your means. You're able to save and have some stability around that. You should be working on your debt. You don't want to come into a relationship where now all of your negative financial issues are going to impact this person that you say that you love, because we know that's very important in this world. It is very important, like your credit score, all that. Whether we think it should be or not is really irrelevant, because it is. And so when you come into a relationship at a significant age, now if you get married when you're like 18 or 20, then that obviously is not going to be the case in most situations, unless you like come from a wealthy family and they like give you a gift. You're still in college, or you're still getting started in whatever your career is or whatever you plan on doing. So but that's different. But when you're like 30, as I said, 30, 40, 50, 60 even, then there should be some level of financial stability. You should be bringing something to the table. And whether, I'm not telling you an amount, I'm just saying you should have financial stability and not be looking for that person to essentially bail you out or of your financial woes, because what ends up happening is you actually bring them down if they are financially stable. But now when you're trying to buy a house together, you're trying to buy a car together, you're trying to do things together, then you have a negative impact on them. So definitely get your finances in order. And if you don't have them in order, wait. Number, what is that? 5, you have unhealed trauma or unresolved issues with yourself or another person in your life. Now, we talked about generational trauma, and I'll put the link to that up here as well. We did part 1 and 2 talking about generational trauma, but you could just have trauma for yourself, like something happened to you, some either relationship or abuse or anything that was traumatic for you that you have not healed from. And healing can happen. Dealing with it, seeing a therapist, addressing it with the person who might have been the perpetrator. And even if they don't apologize or ask for forgiveness, which typically that doesn't happen with abuse, but in other situations, it can happen. It can happen in any situation, but just historically, abusers don't tend to be very apologetic, sincerely, when you call them out on that. But address it. Don't keep it buried. Let someone work through that with you so that you can then come to the table understanding there still may be triggers, but you recognize those and you know how to handle it, versus your husband trying to talk to you or even be romantic with you or intimate with you. And because of unhealed trauma, then you either can't do that, or it's not enjoyable to do to you, or you rarely do it because it reminds you of something else. So these are all types of things that can stem from unhealed trauma, in addition to how you talk to your husband or wife, or how you don't talk to them. Like your communication is terrible because of unhealed trauma. You're triggered, either you have anger issues, all of these things. And even things, when I said unresolved issues with yourself, there may be things that you did to someone else, or you did to yourself that harmed you, and you haven't forgiven yourself for those things. And so all of that baggage comes with you into the relationship. And certainly if there are important people in your life, like maybe if you were married, you have an ex and you still have a contentious relationship, or a parent, or someone that's close and, not necessarily your kindergarten teacher. But I mean, if it's that significant, then yeah, you probably want to talk to them or write a letter or something. But address those unresolved issues so that you don't bring them into the relationship, and so that they don't impact in a negative way how you interact with your partner. Hopefully with the healing, they will actually impact in a positive way, because you'll learn how to do those things better. Number 6 is your spiritual life is shaky. Now, we come, as you all know, from a Christian perspective. We welcome all religions and faiths, or if you have no religion or faith. But if you do have one, then your spiritual life is shaky. That means you're not following your beliefs. You're not being in community and worship in church, and you're not serving. You're not praying. You're not doing things that keep you connected to God. You're not obeying what you know to be right and true from what you've learned and what God has shown you. These are all ways that your spiritual life can be shaky. And then how does that play out in the relationship? Well, God is not prioritized. And so already we're talking about sort of diminishing your capacity to even choose a partner when God is not involved in that decision making, when he's not prioritized in your life. Then the things that you choose are different than the things that he would choose for you. When your decisions are flesh-based and not Bible-based, when there, when you are looking at someone or looking at a relationship as something that is satisfying to you, which is important, but it's not the priority, is looking at someone that honors God, that you grow closer to God together versus growing apart from God when you're together, that you are walking in purpose and service to God. Those are all biblical, sound reasons, Christian, spiritual reasons for being in a relationship versus you just think they're cute, they're nice, they have good money, you know, you all have fun together. Those are all great things, but they shouldn't be priority things. And then if your spirituality is shaky and that person's isn't, then y'all aren't on the same page as far as who's guiding your life. And a lot of times, especially women, but this happens with men too, that you don't have a strong relationship with God because you haven't nurtured that, but you want that in your home. And so then you look for someone who does have a strong relationship with God so that they can kind of like be your covering, but not in the good way that we hear about. But it's almost like they can keep you on the straight and narrow because they're doing right. Well, God doesn't have grandchildren, nor does he have in-laws. And so you need to have your own relationship with God, and your partner needs to have their relationship with God, so then you can be strong together. The seventh thing is that, and I think this is super important, that you don't know your purpose or you're not living it. I think that everyone, I know that, I don't think that, I know that everyone will not be married in their life. That's just a reality of a world of sin where people die early, people are in prison, people, a variety of things. People have other beliefs, people have other sexuality. All of those things contribute to the fact that everyone's not going to be married. Okay. But I do believe, and I know that everyone has a purpose. Everyone has a purpose, and your purpose is not to be married. Your purpose can be lived out in marriage. Your purpose can be lived out as a single person, but everyone has a purpose. And it doesn't always have to be some grand, huge, thing that impacts the whole world. Your purpose is whatever God has created you to be and do. And that hasn't changed for him. He still has a plan for you. Jeremiah 29:11, he's like, I have a plan. I have a blueprint. And when we are not walking in that before we find a partner, then it can be very problematic when you find a partner. Maybe they're walking in their purpose and you're just like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to do this. But then God tells you, or you open your mind to what God has for you. And now those two things are at cross purposes. We know very well that even if you could be married to everyone from just the perspective of, this is a man, this is a woman, they love God, I love God, we can work things out. When you have like a for real purpose and you know what that is, but their purpose kind of contradicts with yours. I use this example all the time, that if you have someone who their purpose, their calling is to be a missionary in another country, and your purpose is to be a teacher in your local small community because when you were growing up, there weren't good teachers there and you wanted to be, then how are those two things going to align? Somebody's going to have to give up their thing. And that's the point blank truth. If you're going to be together, somebody's going to give up their thing. And we all know that it's usually the woman who gives up her thing. The thing that God has for her, it's usually the woman. And so not always, but it's usually the woman. Let's all be real and honest about that. So when you are now in your single season and you're saying, and you're not living that, whether you know what it is or not, God has it. God, what should I be doing? That's the prayer you should be praying. Not find me a husband or tell me where to find, single man or whatever. Like maybe you could do those at the same time. But I think that knowing what your purpose is, and you don't see the end. God doesn't show you the whole picture. God, we all know he does not show us the whole picture. But he shows you some of the picture, and the things he can tell you the things and help you guide you through the things that would be counterproductive to your purpose. And so knowing that so that you all can be in alignment is so important. There's this book by Gary Thomas called A Lifelong Love, and I highly recommend the book, and I'll put the link in the chat. But it's about how a godly marriage actually has its own purpose. Like you two may have separate things that are things you're working on, and you should be able to be in support, even if you're not in alignment in the sense of you're not doing the same thing, but you support them, they support you, and you're walking together. But your marriage should have a purpose, whether it's ministering to teens or being foster parents or, being missionaries or whatever it is. Your marriage is not just for you to enjoy and have fun. It's for you to walk in the purpose that God created, brought that union together. Marriage is like, what God has joined together, let no man put asunder. Well, if God has joined it together, then he gets to use it for his purpose as well. He intends to. And so if you don't know yours, it's going to make it even harder if they don't know theirs, but then you're supposed to find a purpose as a couple. That becomes really difficult because that has not been a priority for your life. So in addition to that, you also can be very unfulfilled. And when you start being unfulfilled or feeling unfulfilled, then you start to lose some of your happiness, your joy. Life becomes very mundane and monotonous. And then that can certainly impact your marriage, because obviously the state that we're in is impactful to the people that are closest to us. And so that's the seventh and final one, like know your purpose. And if you don't know it, talk to God about it, but you're not really ready to join your life with someone because you have to join your life with God who gave you your purpose first. And when you're walking with him, he's going to be directing you. I don't think it's just kind of like this random, like, go figure it out. He directs you to that. And so that comes with number 6 is like your spiritual life is shaky. It's like, get back in alignment with him, talk to him and help him to be preparing you for this purpose. And then ultimately for marriage, if that is what he plans for you. So, of course, there are many more things we could talk about that would indicate that you're not ready for marriage or that you are ready. But take a look at these. See where you might be falling short on some of these areas or just kind of not even in the game on some of these things. And be intentional. Like, I struggle with my finances. What can I do to improve that? What can I do to work on that? What literal, practical, disciplined things can I do to strengthen my financial stability? What can I do to start actually loving myself? What can I do to reconnect my relationship with God? Like, ask yourself these questions, but then answer them and then do the thing. Now, don't try to change everything at one time, because obviously then you end up changing nothing. But do the work. Because as wonderful as marriage is, and as it's intended to be from God, it can be the most disastrous thing in your life if you don't do the work in advance to get to have that marriage that God intends, and then you don't choose someone who also is doing the work in their life. It's a lifelong work. It's like you're not already there or getting there. It's like a process. But some people are not even on the journey, and they're just like, I want to be married, I want to be married, I want to be married. But then you're completely incapable of actually dialing in and being really holistic in that covenant relationship because of all this other baggage that you didn't deal with when you had a chance to. If you're single, 9 times out of 10, that's God's will for you to be single right now. Now, maybe you got married and you got divorced and you're just like, well, that wasn't God's will. That's why I said 9 times out of 10. But if you're single, never married, as hard as that may sometimes be for us to recognize, that's God's will. And so what is his will for you in the meantime? If in this time when, before you get married, if he intends for you to be married, and then if he doesn't intend for you to be married, like, what's his plan for your whole life? Are you just going to be wishing to be married, or are you going to be like happily, holy, holistically purposeful and joyful in the state that he has you? That state of peaceful happiness, of contentment that the Bible says we should be in every state. I hope that your purpose and your plan is to create a life you love by doing all these things. Because think about it. If you actually did all these things and you never got married, you would still be very, very happy. You would be so happy. You would have that contentment. You would have that joy. And so this is not just preparation for marriage. It's just preparation for life. But if you want to be married, then you definitely need to be doing it if you want to have a happy marriage. If you just want to be married, I guess you can do whatever. But if you want to have a happy marriage, which I imagine most people do, then, or all people, then do the work and be prepared for that. Our scripture that we're going to end on is Proverbs 4, verse 7. And it says, wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom, and in all you're getting, get understanding. Our program is about wisdom. Live, love, and marry wiser. And we want you to take wisdom. We believe that we provide it here based on God's word and experience. And so we want you to take wisdom, apply it, and then implement that in your life so that you're ready, whatever the thing is that God has for you, whether, it's some big dream that he's laid out and then prepared for you, or it's marriage, or whatever it is, you'll be ready if you get wisdom, and in all you're getting, get understanding. So God bless you. Remember, our final episode of season 2 is August 15th. So in 2 more weeks. And we have already begun working on some guests for next season that we are excited about. And join us next week when we will have one of our co-hosts back. We'll have another great topic to talk about. And then our final episode will be a recap. And if you have any questions, or if there are any particular episodes that you thought were fascinating and you wanted to know more about them, shoot us a comment in YouTube, or shoot an email to us at support@asinglemission.com, and we can talk about that in the recap, because that's what we do. We just kind of go back and expand on different issues that we talked about throughout the season, share some clips, and just have some laughs and fun. So thank you for joining me again on Live, Love, and Marry Wiser. Oh, you know what I forgot to tell you? What I did this week to live, love, and marry wiser. And that is, I went to the library. I went to get one book, and I ended up with 8 books because I want to get back to reading the way that I used to read. And so I just, on a variety of topics like leadership and health and those types of things. And so I'm excited about that. I already started reading one. And I also am starting a small group on the 9 habits of healthy Christians. Super excited about this. And so that is what I'm doing and have started this week to do to live, love, and marry wiser. Hope that you think about that for yourself. And what are you doing actively? We don't want you to just watch, though we appreciate you watching and commenting. We don't want you to just watch. We want you to actively take steps to live, love, and marry wiser. Until next time, God bless.